right, happy Sunday, everybody. As we've been telling you, Irene is now downgraded to a tropical storm, still wreaking a lot of havoc on New England, though, and the flooding is still coming in. That's the huge story right now. But one of the big stories right now is emerging out of Philadelphia. Welcome, everybody. We got a big, brand new hour of our special programming for you on this Sunday afternoon. I'm Martha McCallum.
And I'm Bill Hemmer. We'll be with you for the next hour here. Then we're back at 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock later tonight. And Philadelphia appears to be getting worse.
Yeah, it does.
We just talked with the mayor, Michael Nutter, last hour. He says the rain is over, but the real problems are only now beginning. That city now facing what he says is the potential for record flooding. Worse than 1999, you might remember from Hurricane Floyd. Worse than the snowstorm melt of 1996. The mayor says they're in for it. So we're going to talk to a reporter in a moment here. WTXF reporter Karen Hepp is out there live in Philadelphia, and we're going to speak to her.
You know, we didn't know what we were going to be facing this morning when we came in, because the initial idea was that, the wind was the story that didn't really happen here, because it did not knock a lot of things down in terms of structures. The water was tremendous in this 500-mile stretch of hurricane, and that's what folks are dealing with now in a big way. Let's go to WTXF reporter Karen Hepp, who joins us now from Philadelphia. Hi, Karen.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. This is the Manayunk section of Philadelphia. There's the Schuylkill River that flows right behind here. Let me just show you what's going on right here. We've got massive flooding that's happening. The Schuylkill's right beyond those banks. This is called a Main Street. We have basically the river at this point. It's clearly past flood stage, but the crest is going to be at 2 p.m. today. We've got a lot of people that are just coming down here to take a look and take pictures of what's happening. We have lots of power outages throughout the Philadelphia area. We've got lots of scenes like this going on all over. I've been driving around since early this morning, and what we're seeing, this is basically a flooding story and a power story for most of the people in the Philadelphia area in terms of having the flooding in their basements and having their power go out. We still have several 100,000 people that are in this area. We had a lot of people that were in shelters. I was over in New Jersey. We had many, many shelters there because they evacuated, of course, the shore areas. So they were full. They were at capacity, 1,000 people each. Those are going to be getting to have those folks go back now because they're lifting these states of emergency that we had right now for the city of Philadelphia. That's been lifted. That is going to be lifted also in the state of Delaware, where they'll be allowing travel after this hour right about now. We have, I know in New York, you had your subway service out. We had our subway service out here in Philadelphia. That started back up and running about 10 this morning on some of the lines. All of our regional rail, they just can't get people back out there because, of course, we have all this flooding that's on the tracks and all over our area. So trees down, power outages all over. But, you know, folks weathered the storm pretty well. I think this comes up as a bad nor'easter where we're having more flooding than we would normally see with a massive rainstorm. But we didn't have the real high winds that some had anticipated as the wind gusts right now as I'm speaking. But the problem, of course, is our ground is so saturated with the wettest month that we've ever had in history that all of our big old tree limbs right now, the trees are just being completely uprooted because there's nothing to hold them into the ground. So if you just blow on a tree, they're falling over, and that's taking down our power lines. So they're saying about a week to even 2 weeks to get the power up for so many people. But the good news is that since we didn't have as much damage, that a lot of the stores, the restaurants are reopening. Our city's going to be open for business tomorrow. All of the city offices, people will be reporting back into work. And a lot of our restaurants are now sending out on Twitter notices saying, hey, come on over for happy hour. Come on over. We're going to have dinner. You know, spend the day with us. And, you know, even though we had to shut down because of the storm, we want to get back open for business because there were so many businesses that had to close this weekend, especially so many of our shore communities. They just lost out on millions of dollars, of course. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Karen, you know, there might be a tiny bit of economic stimulus to this story if some folks are able to get out, and that'll make everybody at the restaurants happy. But boy, folks are going to get really unhappy quickly if we look at a situation where we're out of power in homes 1 to 2 weeks. That's a tough situation.
It really is. Now, people stocked up. I mean, I'm sure they did also throughout the entire, all up and down the eastern seaboard, the whole 95 corridor, where people were going out. I mean, all of the batteries were taken off the shelves, the generators, people were out there buying. They wanted to be prepared, and they're still going to need that because they're still going to need to have some of those canned goods, everything that's in the refrigerators. When your power's out, that's just going to go bad. You're going to have to throw it out, so people will at least be able to get out to some of the restaurants and pick up some more supplies. But certainly that's going to be a real tough situation. But people really acted very responsibly in the Philadelphia Philadelphia area proper, we had no deaths that were reported directly related to this. And I think that's because people took it seriously. The message went out about this, that all of the services were going to be shut down, that you had to be safe, stay inside. We have our airport. That's going to be reopening today at 4 o'clock. But of course, when they shut the airport down, what they did is they sent all the planes other places. So none of those planes will be back in our area till 4 o'clock. So we're not going to have any departing flights from this neck of the woods, at least until tomorrow.
Boy, there's going to be snarled up traffic in all these airports, Philadelphia, Boston, New York. That's going to be a big part of the story this afternoon. And of course, as we head into the business week tomorrow as well. Karen, stay dry. Great job telling us what's going on in your area. We appreciate it. Karen Hepp, thank you so much.
Well, a lot of what she's talking about only happened 9 days ago when they had that record flooding and rainfall rather in Philadelphia. In that storm, some videotape just from 9 days ago. In that storm, there were 4 people killed. And now she talks about the trees being uprooted because the ground is just so darn soft. And when the trees come down, they take the power lines with them. When the power lines go, you're out of luck. And to date, they've tracked, what, 4.6 million people at one point or another either have lost power or still do not have power at the moment. So that was from last week, and now they're going to have to deal with what's coming their way now. Irene is not done yet, though. The city of Boston, all those surrounding areas now dealing with the punishing winds and rain there. Mass transit there was shut down to prevent equipment damage and help keep people indoors. On the phone now, who's with us? Judge Peter Judge with the Massachusetts. Okay, is it the governor? Got it. Scott McLeod's on the line now. Governor, are you with me?
This is Scott McLeod with the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency.
Terrific. Thank you for your time here. Now, tell us what you're dealing with now, because our understanding is that the winds are getting stronger in Massachusetts.
Yeah, well, the good news
is, power outages are increasing by the hour. Is that true?
That is correct. You know, we'll continue to see those power outage numbers creep up through the afternoon as that wind continues to increase and the rain pulls away. But as of noontime, we were up over 200,000 power outages statewide. So that's certainly an issue that we anticipated, that we planned for, and that we will continue to address as the day moves forward here.
I'm assuming you're in Boston, are you?
We're in Framingham, actually, just outside of Boston.
What are your conditions there?
Well, we have a number of trees down, limbs down, flooded roadways. Certainly out in the western part of Massachusetts, rain was the bigger issue for us. There's been a number of local roads that have washed out, some local evacuations. And then, you know, once this storm pulls away, even later this evening, we're going to continue to monitor the coastal flood threat, especially for the south coast of Massachusetts, with those winds pushing a lot of water up into Buzzards Bay on the south coast.
What is your view, Scott, knowing that that storm has essentially doubled in its speed? You know, yesterday at this time it was moving 13, 14 miles an hour to the north. Now it's more like 26.
Yeah, well, the good news is the sooner it gets here, the sooner it leaves, and it gives us the opportunity to get our local public safety officials, DPW departments out there to start cleaning up the mess, and more importantly, get those utility crews out there to restore that power.
All right. Scott, thank you. Good luck, okay?
Thank you.
She's coming your way. Scott McLeod's up there in Framingham, Massachusetts, where Irene, now a tropical storm, is arriving. Not as intense as we experienced a bit earlier here today, but still something to deal with, Martha.
Certainly rocking those boats around in Marion, Massachusetts at this hour. So Irene is barreled through Queens earlier this morning. It's storm surge flooding areas along the borough's southern coast. Mike Tobin is live from Howard Beach with more for us on that story. And there comes Mike right about now. Hey, Mike.
Hey there, and what a difference a couple of hours makes. It looks like I'm doing a traffic report right now, only there's not that much traffic. This is the Cross Bay Boulevard that you saw flooded a while ago. The causeway is now open. People are coming and going from that area called the Rockaways. And the only thing that really makes that remarkable is just the contrast from what it looked like a couple of hours ago. We can roll the videotape. Standing where I am right now, you'd be knee-deep in water. The storm surge, the high tide, the high winds all came together to drive all of the seawater up and over the seawall onto this main drag in the center of town. It was flooded as far as the eye could see. The wind was gusting up to around 50 miles an hour when the storm was at its peak. Then the winds calmed down. In fact, the winds changed direction and started driving that seawater back out to sea. The water, you're not going to believe this. By my estimation now, I was just looking at the seawall, it's about 10 or 11 feet down from where it was at the peak of the storm. It's really remarkable just how much that water has receded since the eye of the hurricane passed over this direction. We do have reports of a number of rescues. Most of those water rescues were conducted in the city itself. Out here in the area just south of Queens near JFK Airport, no rescues. We do have some reports of some structural damage, a couple of houses that fell down, but by and large, this little area got by pretty easy. Martha?
All right, Mike. Mike Tobin, it's fascinating the way the water just floods in there and then it almost gets pulled out by the force when the tide goes back out and the storm starts to pull around to the other side. Mike, many thanks. Good to see you.
And speaking of rescues, a lot to talk about there. Emergency crews are in full force, and they've been on 24-hour alert right now, helping folks who decided to stay home and ride out the storm. This is what we watched about 2 hours ago. Elmsford, New York, and as you can see, this is up the Hudson River Valley. Significant flooding there, and crews rescuing at least half a dozen residents from rising waters. I believe that was two young ladies who
saw that earlier
who got
today,
off that boat with their backpacks and store, and they were brought to safety. But that house, you know, big questions about how much water's in the basement. And it's going to take some time to dry that out. And we're seeing those scenes up and down that Hudson River Valley. So we can also expect, you know, when that rain starts coming off the mountains and the hills around the area, the water's only going to go one place, and that's up, and it's going to go higher.
And it takes a heck of a long time to get that water out of the basement, to dry the house out, and it leaves permanent damage in many cases. So that's a tough part of the story. And Irene, of course, has caused a lot of headaches for travelers, both in the Northeast and around the country, because there's so many main nerve centers in these huge East Coast airports, of course. Passengers are waiting it out at Boston's Logan Airport as Irene passes through there, and all the way across the country in California. Passengers are stranded in San Francisco by flight cancellations. Travelers are managing to keep their spirits up, though, despite the obvious stress of the situation.
We just, you know, check out of the hotel. We returned the car rental. We've been here since last Monday. So it's been a week. We're ready to go home, and I have to go to work tomorrow. I just have to call off everything.
I have a boat, and it's in the water. I wasn't able to get it out. I'm a little concerned about that. But my house is was supposed to be made to hurricane standard.
Well, I guess he'll find out when he gets home, right? In New York, mass transit remains shut down, turning the usually bustling Grand Central Station into a ghost town. We'll see how it looks tomorrow. Tomorrow's the big question. Will the markets open up as expected? Will we be able to get all of the mass transit systems up and running in the morning? That's a huge question for a lot of folks.
Yeah, you think about these travelers, too. You're talking, this could be a Tuesday or a Wednesday deal before things are back. And when you cancel 9,000 flights over 2 days,
a lot of reverberation.
And you think about the millions and millions of travelers who use the East Coast for their route of transportation, this is going to be a mess to untangle. Roads were flooded in Long Beach, Long Island, just due east of Manhattan. Irene's surge so powerful the lifeguard tower is washed away by waves. It's 2 stories tall. It was surrounded by sandbags, but the sandbags did not stand a chance. Neither did the tower. Laura Ingle did. She's up and running today. Long Beach Island. How is it, Laura?
Hi, Bill. You know, the boardwalk is slowly coming back to life. I should say quickly at this point. We've had people slowly trickling in through the morning after that storm passed us, the brunt of it, I should say. And, you know, this is usually a very, very busy boardwalk on the weekend. The beach is usually packed. I'm going to have Rob, our cameraman, pan over and show you the waves. Earlier today, oh, they were huge. They were pounding the surf. Really scary stuff, which is exactly why this area was under a mandatory evacuation. Now, right now, as we see people enjoying the surf and enjoying the beach, we've been watching people going up very close, actually, and taking pictures next to the crashing waves, not advised. But there's been massive flooding here along the streets that had waves lapping up against businesses that were boarded up and sandbagged before the storm. A redundant scene all up and down Long Island as trees were splintering like toothpicks, taking down power lines and knocking out power to nearly half of Long Island's 1.1 million million utility customers. The local fire chief here in Long Beach requested assistance from Nassau County. The executive has given him the help that he needed to help clean out the debris. National Guard troops are on the way to help assist with that clean out as well. The one good thing that we can say about Nassau County and these massive waves going on right now is that there's going to be a big surf competition that everybody here in town has been talking about, scheduled to take place next week, still going to take place next week as far as the event organizers can tell us. That's going to help with the economy as well. $10 to $15 million is expected to be pumped into Long Beach because of that surf competition. And of course, the local economy could certainly use it because all those businesses lost so much over the weekend when they boarded back to you.
What's the undertow, whether you're swimming today or next week?
Yeah.
And I see the class is not in session yet. I mean, given it's a Sunday, but